Okay. So let's say that we're talking to company XYZ, right? And they, oh, you know what? Let's use something we are well familiar with. Withdrawing money from the ATM from bank XYZ. Okay. When you look into Visio, there's some basic elements you need to understand. Okay. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that if you were mapping a process that has different people contributing into it, in the world of Visio, those people are called actors. Okay, so you're withdrawing money from an ATM, from your account, basically, right? You, the customer, you're an actor. The ATM that you're trying to withdraw money from is an actor. Okay, any entity that contributes to the process or consumes the process is an actor, basically. But because this process we want to describe has more than one actor, there's more than one actor. In Visio, when you want to display that, you need to give every actor their own space. You don't put two actors into one space. What does that mean? I have my mouse over this thing here called swim lane. Okay, just watch what I'm going to do. I'm picking that swim lane, dragging it, and I just dropped it in here. That's all I did. I picked it from the left-hand side and I dropped it in here. The title, once you drop the first one, it automatically gives you room for title. So I'm going to put, the process we're describing here is called withdraw funds. Okay, always give your process a title, because whoever is looking at it, they shouldn't have to read the entire thing for them to know what you're talking about. So we identify the first actor, and that person is the customer. So in here, we're going to write customer. Bear in mind that what I'm showing you, because I'm just introducing you to Visio, right? I'm keeping it simple. We're not going to do anything too complicated for now, right? The first actor we've identified is the customer who's trying to withdraw money from the ATM. Now, I believe virtually everybody in class has done some form of withdrawal from an ATM. Can anybody tell me any other actor in the withdrawal process? Anybody? Just shout it out.
ATM machine.
ATM machine, fantastic. Thank you. ATM machine, which is also the bank, basically, but we're going to make it specific here, right? ATM. Okay. Now, let's imagine a scenario where you try to withdraw money from the ATM, right? One of the things that could happen is you'd be able to withdraw the money, or sometimes your card, maybe this really doesn't happen in North America, but let's say your card got stuck in the ATM machine. What would you do if your card got stuck in the ATM machine? Is there any other actor you may approach for help? Anybody?
The bank help desk or something.
Okay, so you may just walk into the branch, right, and talk to what do they call the people who, let's just call them customer service.
Customer service.
Yeah. So now we've identified a third actor, right? Now, let's pause for 1 minute. If this was in a real life scenario where you were meeting with stakeholders and they were telling you about the process, by them telling you, they're going to be naming the actors. But let's say they're talking and they mention a step and they don't mention the person who performs it. Ask the BA, what do? You ask them, who performs the task you just mentioned? Because it is very critical that you know the actor for each function. If you don't know the actor, but you document the function, what would happen is that part of the solution may not be built right. If you don't know who you're building for, you may not build it right. It's almost like saying, I'm going to buy food, but you don't know if you're buying food for a baby or a toddler or an older person or a middle-aged person. So you buy chicken and chips, and then you find out later that you're actually trying to buy food for a 3-month-old. Okay, so knowing your actor is very important. Okay. Can anybody think of any other actor that could play in this process here for any reason whatsoever?
The person that stuffs the ATM with the actual cash. I don't know what they call them.
Okay, so the person who right, okay, so let's put that. That's a very good one. Adejoke, please give us a name for that person.
Yeah, they are called cash officers.
Cash officer, okay, fantastic.
Thank you, cash officers.
Okay. Any other actor? And maybe there's none, it's okay, but I just want to make sure we're really thinking about it.
The cash itself, the availability of the cash.
How about
sorry, the availability of the cash. The cash itself does not do anything. It does what it's told to do. So it's not an actor. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good.
How about those who monitor the machines remotely?
Sorry, somebody was just speaking. What about those? I'm so sorry. Two people spoke at the same time and I didn't hear any of it.
All right. Yeah. I said what of the ATM card itself? The ATM card and
the ATM card is not an actor because the customer is the one, the actor using it, right? Yeah.
I believe the person who monitors the machine in case there's a fault remotely.
Okay. So if in case there's a fault, the person who would maybe fix
they
it.
Receive a feedback. No, usually they receive a feedback that this machine is faulty or this machine is running down on cash.
Okay.
Yeah, they are still the cash officers.
Yeah. Okay, so the cash officer does the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing? All right.
Yeah.
What of the bank itself?
What of what? The bank?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've represented the bank as the ATM. Because
there is
really when you're taking money from your account, right? It's your account with the bank, right? And so the bank at that point is, sorry, the ATM at that point is representing the bank to you. But we also capture the bank by customer service. So really, it's the bank we've broken down into ATM and customer service.
There is a switching company also, like a switch company that handles the interface that enables the bank customers access their payment, online.
Right, and that's a very good one, except it won't really belong in a process flow. So we're trying to understand the process from the point of view of the user. There are other types of processes you map that will talk about interfaces. So you make a very good point. But from a process flow, business process flow, trying to understand how a process is carried out by your stakeholders don't care about the interface. They don't even know there's an interface. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. But like I said, you make a good point, and that belongs in the right flow. That most likely would be in, I'm trying to remember the name of
Abiola, we have the branch head of operations.
What role will the branch head of operations play here?
Yeah, she is the head of the cash officer, so possibly they might go inside the ATM machine, the machine place together to check it out.
Yes, Abiola. So we can, so sorry, I'm just going to quickly make a point here. That still goes under here. We can call them the cash department.
That'll be the cash custodian for the branch. The person loading the ATM is the cash custodian, not the cash officer.
Okay. I'm definitely open to correcting the name, whatever we call them. To be honest, I don't even know.
We're just using terms that are used in Canada or is used in Nigeria.
So Abiola,
yeah,
the person I was trying to describe is actually not the cash officer. It's actually a technician. Usually they monitor, they have signals if the machine has any faults.
Okay.
Yes.
So what are they called?
They're more like technicians.
It's like the support department, ATM sort of.
Yeah.
So let's just call them ATM technician for now. You can always update the name to, but remember, you're going to call them whatever the business tells you, right? We're going a bit back and forth on these names because we are coming up with it. But in a real life scenario, they will tell you what it's called. You won't have to worry about it. Okay? So you know what? Let's just, there may be more actors, but let's keep it this way, right? Because we don't want to overcomplicate it. So now we've identified 5 actors. One is the customer who's withdrawing money from the ATM. The second one is the actual ATM that the customer is trying to get money from. The third one is customer service. Fourth one is cash custodian. Fifth one is ATM technician. Okay. I have a question for people on the call. What would an ATM technician do differently from customer service in this flow? I know that in real life, the jobs are different, but for the process, for the purposes of withdrawing funds, what is the difference in between what either of them will do? Adiola, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
The technical part of the process.
I didn't get that. Say that again, please.
The technical part of the process.
Okay, so will the customer service be the one to notify the ATM? Because somebody was saying if the ATM developed a fault, the technician will be alerted, right?
Yes.
Okay, but the customer service here, what will they be doing? Because the technician will get automatically alerted. Sorry. So what we're saying here is that before the technician shows up, because the technician isn't going to just show up magically, right? By then, the customer must have gone in to complain and they'll be talking to customer service.
Oh, okay. So the customer service representative escalates the issue to them.
To the ATM technician, right? Okay.
Yes.
So you just call them customer service reps. So I asked that question because I want us to fully understand, because once we start mapping it out, our line of thought must flow, right? And if it doesn't flow, that's how we begin to understand the problems, the pain point. One of the reasons why you map out is you begin to see redundancies. You begin to say, but these 2 different actors, sincerely, only one actor could be performing it. Those are the things you're going to look out for when you're mapping out a process. So let's start. We've identified 5 actors and we're good with it. Was somebody going to say something?
Yes, Abiola. I want to be sure that, are we talking about the ATM being trapped or the machine is totally faulty?
You said, are we talking about the ATM
yeah,
being
if the ATM is just being trapped? Like I want to withdraw cash and my ATM got stuck in the machine.
Your ATM card got stuck in the machine.
Yes. Is that what we're talking about?
That's what we're talking about. Who would help you get that card out? Can customer service help you?
No, the cash, only the cash custodian, they call it the cash officer. They have the key, they are the one that loads money, and they have the right to go inside the machine room, pick up the card. That's what they do.
Okay, so I have a
they
follow-up
don't
question
necessarily need to make they call the technicians, because the technicians might be they are not inside the office, and the is not fault. It's just that the card is stopped.
You make a good point. So I have a question actually. What we've all just described, are we talking about North America?
See, that's the thing. I think the process depends on the organization and how the laid out. It might not necessarily be, our native experience, maybe from where we're coming from. It depends on what the process is.
And that's fine. And you're right. It depends on the organization. But because we're making it up, the reason I ask that is I want us to have the same understanding. It's okay for the process to be from anywhere, but we all need to be on the same page, right? Secondly, there are a few hands raised. That's good. I love discussions, right? Secondly, my recommendation, and just this is especially to the point of the last person who spoke, is that we remove ATM technician from here. And I'll tell you why. The reason I think we should remove ATM technician from here is that if an ATM machine breaks down, that's a process in and of itself in terms of how we fix it. So that can be a standalone process. That's number one. And then number two, because we're just looking at process mapping today, like I said, I want us to keep it simple. So what I'll do is I'll take that out. Okay. Sounds like we want, and it doesn't matter. Please don't get hung up on whether it's cash officer or cash custodian. It's all good. It doesn't matter. Like I said, your stakeholders will give you the name. Use the name that they give you. So for now, we've agreed customer ATM, customer service rep, cash officer. Okay. Now let's move it one step higher. When you start mapping a process, there's 4 to 5 shapes. We call them shapes, right? So now I have the basic flow chart shape up here. There's 4 to 5 shapes that there's virtually no process you're mapping that you won't use them. At least you use 2 to 3 of them. Every time you're starting to map out a process, right, you need to have a start shape. You can see the shapes are numbered, so it helps you, right? You know when you're starting, this is the shape. When you're ending, that is the shape. Okay? Do not pull this shape and call it start. This is not start. This shape here is start, and it is the same shape you're going to use for end. Some other versions of Visio, start and stop or end, look slightly different. Whatever the case, it is going to have its name. Just follow the name. So that is start. It just tells you this process starts here or it ends here. Another shape that you're going to use is what we call the process. The process is an action that is being performed. Okay? One of the many actions that will be performed as part of the process. Okay? Then we have what we call, where is it again? Decision. What the decision does is that out of every decision, there will be a yes or a no coming out of it. Customer inserts card into ATM. ATM requests PIN number. Customer enters PIN number. ATM checks if PIN number is correct. If PIN number is correct, ATM does A. If PIN number is wrong, ATM does B. ATM is making a decision. And out of every decision, there must be 2 outcomes, negative or positive. Okay? I'm telling you about these shapes before I start using them. So you understand their purpose, and as I begin to drag them into the lanes, it makes sense to you. Okay? There's this document here we call, there's this shape here we call a document. Typically, you'd use this shape here when maybe, for example, the document is submitted or the document is generated. You usually add it into the flow so that whoever is looking at it would know, oh, here we're referring to a document. A document is created, a document is submitted. Something happens with a document, basically. Okay? So I'm going to delete the shapes now. Does anybody have questions about these shapes? I've showed you just 4, but as you can see, there's like a gazillion shapes in Visio. You're not going to learn everything today. You're not even going to learn everything in 1 month. But in terms of what you actually need to get your job done, the 4 items that I showed you, they're really the most important. They're the ones that you're going to use over and over and over again. So it's important that you have an understanding of when to use it. Okay?
So sorry, there's a question in the chat. Someone's asking, yes, what version of Visio to download? Is it a Microsoft?
Sorry, say that again.
No, the person was asking what version of Visio to download.
As far as I know, for the free version, there's only 1 version you can download. I don't think there's multiple. I'm using paid version here, so maybe yours may look slightly different, but the shapes are not going to be any different. A decision is always a diamond. Always a diamond. A process is always a square. A sub-process is always like a white square with a line to the left and a line to the right. Start and end is usually this shape or a circle. Document is always the shape. So whatever version, in fact, The version you download today may not be the version they're using at your organization, and may not be the version they're going to use at the next organization you're moving to. But thankfully, one thing Visio has done well is to keep the shapes consistent.
Okay, quick question. Is it same as the Lucy chart?
Yeah, so Lucy chart, to be honest, you know, and I might be a bit biased, but it's not, they do the same. Lucy chart is used to map. I remember for the last cohort, I don't know why there were groups who used Lucy chart, and they ran into so many problems that during the class, as they got more comfortable with Visio, even they didn't like the Lucy chart diagram that they had created. They serve the same purpose, but my recommendation would be use Visio. I've not worked in an organization that uses Lucy chart. So get comfortable with what your employer is likely to use. I know I said a bit more than you asked me, but yeah, they serve the same purpose. Just like, you know, Yashin showed you Jira yesterday. Jira is not the only tool that is used for what we talked about yesterday. Some companies use what we call version 1, but the concept of it is the same. Okay. Are there any other questions? There's like 19 comments. I'm just gonna quickly, people were just suggesting some of the names, and please walk us through the Visio. Okay, we'll take a look at that before class ends. That was Stella, right? Yeah. You do not see a free version, Stella. Okay, I know there are a few people in class who have downloaded Visio. Has anybody downloaded Visio? Can you speak up, please?
I just did. You can use the Microsoft 365. When you pick the Visio, you just go for the trial version. It's 30 days. And
yeah,
it's free.
30 days.
You don't pay anything. Yeah.
Yeah, Stella. So please.
I'll just put a link in the chat. You can click on it and try.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Just in case we don't have enough time, because I know once I start mapping, people are going to have questions. So we're starting. I'm going to put a start here to indicate that this is the starting point of my process. Every process must have a start and an end. Again, think about when you're on the job. They're telling you about this process where you should have an end. You have a loop. It just keeps going on and on and on. That is a problematic process. So when you begin to map it out as a BA and you can't get to an end, go back to them to understand, one, did you miss it? And if you didn't miss it and there truly isn't an end, then you know that there is an opportunity for improvement, because every process must have an end. So now we have the start. Okay. Would we all agree that the starting point is that a customer inserts their card into the ATM? Does anybody think something else happens before that? I mean, obviously, if the customer is going to approach the ATM and all of that, we're assuming all of that has been done. In terms of withdrawing funds from the ATM, is there anything that happens before the customer inserts their card into the ATM? I'll take silence to be no. No, right? Okay. So I'm going to take a process shape and I'm going to drop it in here. Okay. And I'm going to say insert card into ATM. See how I didn't write customer inserts card into ATM? I do not need to, because the process occurs in the lane of the customer. So I do not need to repeat, because otherwise I'm going to keep repeating stuff all over the map. Insert card into ATM. Okay. What happens after customer inserts card? This is going to be a very interactive class. What happens after the customer inserts their card into the ATM?
Maybe the customer is required to enter a PIN.
The PIN.
Okay, fantastic. I think we all agree. And who's making the request?
The ATM machine.
Fantastic. Okay, I love my shapes to be well aligned. Okay. Request PIN number. Okay. So when the customer requests the PIN number, if, because the customer needs money, we're going to drop another process in here and say customer enters PIN number. After the customer enters PIN number, what does the ATM do?
It's going to request for the amount and maybe denomination.
No, that would be a very terrible ATM. The ATM needs to select
what service you want.
It needs to validate the PIN number.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
If you know of any ATM that doesn't ask for validate PIN number, please let us know.
The one we have.
Yeah, that's free money for everyone.
Validate PIN number. Okay? When it validates the PIN number, what happens next? Can anybody tell me what happens after that?
It should ask for the service you want.
Confirms the PIN, whether it's correct or incorrect.
Fantastic. Huh? And how do we represent that? Through a decision. ATM does a validation. It does a check that it's been programmed to do. And by doing the check, the ATM wants to know, is the PIN correct or is the PIN wrong? If it is wrong, this is what I'm going to do. If it is correct, this is what I'm going to do. So here we say PIN correct. Usually, when you have a decision diamond or simply called decision, right? You put a question mark because it's asking a question to know how to proceed. PIN correct, right? So let's start with the happy path. The happy path is where when things flow the way that they should, okay? So for the happy path, PIN is correct, right? So what does the ATM do if the PIN was correct?
Allows you to proceed.
What does that mean? Proceed is too high level.
It will fetch the account details or like balance on the account.
No, probably display the name of the account holder.
Okay, we all must be using different ATM machines because when I use the ATM machine, which to be honest, I don't use it often, if the PIN is correct, it displays all the accounts I have with the bank.
Oh yeah, it's gonna say check-in, saving.
Check balance.
Yeah.
Check. Yeah.
It doesn't even display the balance. It displays the accounts that I have, and it requests me to select one. When I select that one, then I proceed. That's what I remember, but I may remember wrong. Do we agree that it displays accounts is what is next?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Display accounts held with the bank. Okay. I'm going to make the lane for the ATM big because usually when you have a decision, you have multiple boxes in there. So, but anyway, we're starting with display account details. And then what happens after the account details? The account that the customer has at the bank, the ATM has displayed them. What happens next?
Then it's going
to then customer chooses which account.
Selects which account.
Fantastic.
Yeah, she has money.
Put a process in there. Customer selects account to debit. Okay. Then after the customer selects the account, what does the customer do?
Enter the amount.
Okay. To be honest, to not make it too long, I'm just going to put that.
Abella, sorry. I think the ATM pops up if there are amounts we're going to enter before the customer enters it. So maybe there we need to put for the ATM first because ATM pops it up. How much do you want to collect before the customer inputs the amount or the customer enters the amount?
Okay, so you're saying in between customer selecting the account,
yes,
the ATM asks the customer how much they want to withdraw.
Yes. I'm not sure if I'm right.
Well, nobody objected. Nobody said no to what you said, so we'll take it that you're right. Request amount to be, and bear in mind that the first time you're mapping this out is not going to be perfect. Like even the words, you may go back to edit it later so it makes more sense, right? So request amount to be withdrawn, okay? And then we'll take it that the next thing is customer enters amount. Okay, after the customer enters the amount, what happens?
It tells the customer to verify the amount on the account.
Really?
It pops up the denominations that you want for the amount you want to get. Either you want it in 20s, or you want it in 5s, or you want it in 10s. It pops it out.
It should confirm if you have the money first.
So after customer enters amount, good point. Yes. ATM validates customer has sufficient funds. Okay, so sufficient funds. Okay, I guess I need to type it out. Sufficient funds, right? And so would you agree that because there's some type of validation happening here, that we need to put a decision diagram in there because customer may not have sufficient funds? Do we agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just making more space here, but I'm glad you're all following. Validate. So we put a decision shape here. Has customer has sufficient funds. So let's think about the happy path. Customer has sufficient funds. What happens next?
Denomination.
Okay. So the ATM, it must have been really long I used an ATM. I don't remember the denomination thing, but
I
that's actually
think the denomination always comes at the beginning of the transaction, letting you know that this is the bills available. So I don't think it happens like, I don't know.
Is there anybody that thinks that it doesn't ask for denomination, it just gives you what has been loaded into the ATM?
Yeah.
No, they always ask for denomination.
Ask for denominations, they always do.
Always.
No.
They don't always ask.
Social bank has never.
They don't
Especially
always
goes
ask for
to an
denomination.
RBC has.
Like at the point of
TD
inserting
Bank
your
always
card, the
asks
machine
me
tells you the denomination
and
available.
CIBC
That's even
always
before you
asks
start
It just
anything.
depends on
It depends on the ATM.
One house, please.
Yeah. It depends on the bank you use.
The person who said one house, you know why I actually let people talk and not, try to rein it in, is because when you start dealing with your customers, sometimes it'll be that way. And one person is saying this and another person is saying that, right? And you as a BA, you need to bring it all back together because otherwise you're not going to get anything out of it. Okay. So anyway, let's come back to the process, right? Whether the ATM is going to ask for denomination or not, let's even just leave that out of it for now. Doesn't really matter. The ATM you use would ask you that question. The one I use doesn't ask me the question. It's okay. I mean, the key thing here is we want to get an understanding of how to map. Okay, so let's just again keep it simple. Customer has enough funds. So we say ATM disposes funds. Okay, once ATM disburses it, the customer will take their money from the ATM. Takes money from ATM. And then let's say ATM, so when ATM disburses the money, I'm trying to think of when it generates the receipt. It's after the customer takes the money, right? From the,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So generates receipts, okay? And then we'll say customer takes receipts, and what happens? it ends.
ATM
sorry.
usually asks if you want to do another transaction, and then you say no, and then you end.
Okay. So we can definitely include that. Confirms if another transaction, no, actually ask. So it's really in form of a question, right? Because the ATM is trying to determine something here, okay, we're going to take another decision. Okay. Another transaction. No. Actually, let me think about this for a minute. So ask if another transaction is needed. And then the customer needs to determine whether they want to do another transaction. Okay, so no, so I'm going to do select another transaction. And if that is a no, okay, if that is a no, then this ends. Does everybody follow so far?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So now, all these shapes we have in here, they're not connected. There is a sequence, right? But if somebody was just looking at this, how will they know to go this way? Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Can you see the arrow? There's no way anybody can tell to go this way, that way, that way. There's no way they're going to know that. Okay? So we're going to connect it. Let me look for my connectors. Visio has added so many shapes, right? So if you're looking for a shape and you can't find it, you go in here and you type what you're looking for. If you know the name anyway, I guess if you don't know the name, you may not know what to look for. So it's thinking, let's give it a minute.
I saw one app there.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you speak up a bit?
Yeah, I'm saying I saw one app there just by the pointer tool, under the pointer tool.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for noting that. You can see the connector from here as well. I should have actually used that one because this one seems to be thinking for. But if you type connector in here, depending on the type of connector you're looking for, you actually get a very long list here. So many type of connectors in there. But my recommendation, and again, thank you for mentioning this, is because you're just starting, don't go confuse yourself with see how many connectors they are. Just select this connector here, okay?
Okay.
So you see, because I selected that connector, when I came back here, it gave me this plus sign. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So all you do is that point that turns green, like where you see a green square, whenever you hover over the shape, go on there, click on it, and just draw a line in between the two things you're trying to connect. It automatically gives you that connector. Can you see the arrow? This arrow tells you we go from here to here. And just do the same for everything you're trying to connect. Pretty straightforward. Nothing complicated here. Now, whoever is looking at this diagram can follow what I'm doing. Okay? They know, okay, this shape leads to that shape and on. Now, we've mapped withdrawing money from a process flow, right? To an extent, this is not a complete map. I'm just trying to align it. I really do not like it when these arrows are not aligned. But remember how I told you that every time you have a decision diamond, two arrows must come out of it. There can't be one arrow. That's one of the things you need to watch out for. When they're telling you about their process, right, they're going to tell you verbally. However, when you document it, right, when you begin to map it out, things begin to jump out at you. They tell you about a process where somebody makes a decision, but they only tell you one of the outcomes of the decision. That is a problematic process. You need to find out what the second outcome is. And if there is no second outcome, then that is not a real decision. That may actually be an opportunity for automation. That may be an opportunity for several types of improvement. But it's one of the things you need to watch out for. A decision diamond or a decision that has only one outcome. Okay, so now let's go back to the first diamond we have. We know what would happen in the happy path. The pin is correct. Because this is a question, pin correct, right? If it is a yes, then it displays the account. So in here, we're going to type yes. How did I do that? I basically double-clicked on the arrow. You can double-click on any arrow. Once you double-click on it, it will give you a text box to type into. Okay? Now, let's talk about the other outcome. Pin incorrect. If the pin was incorrect. Sorry, was someone talking? Okay, I thought someone had a question. So the other outcome is that the PIN is incorrect. If the PIN that a customer enters is incorrect, what happens? Anybody?
Try again.
The ATM would ask the customer to try again, right?
Yes.
Do we all have an agreement on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
The person will try 3 times.
So request PIN. Request, I'll just put correct PIN number. Actually, this is what I'm going to do. So, okay, you know what? Let me do this first so you can see what I'm about to call out. Request PIN number. Okay, there are a few things I want to highlight here. When you're doing a process map and you have a task or a part of the process that repeats, always reuse the first one. If you have request PIN all over, that's not a good process map. If we try to do it this way, request PIN, right? Let's say that the customer now enters the correct PIN number. I now have to drag an arrow from here to here. See how ugly it got so fast? Because now I've had to cross through another line just to get here. When all I actually needed to do is request PIN number. Okay, so if I take this out, because I already have a request PIN, I draw an arrow back in here. Everybody following so far? Is anybody lost?
No.
Okay. So request PIN, we come back here. And then it continues. It validates it. Customer enters PIN. PIN is incorrect, it sends the customer back here to request PIN. Because I don't want to overcomplicate things today, because I could go to the point where the customer has now entered 3 incorrect PIN numbers, they lock the, let's say that the account is now locked. Actually, maybe we should go there. We have time anyway. So PIN correct, you know, however many times, maybe some banks 3 times, some other banks 5 times, you know, but there's a limit, right? So customer re-enters PIN, ATM does validation, request PIN, no. So this is even wrong. So I'm just going to delete, we'll redo all of that. From request PIN, we go to customer enters PIN, not validate PIN number. Okay? So I'm just going to create more space for myself to work with. If you hold on a second, all I'm doing here is, sorry, 1 second. So all I'm doing here is I'm just trying to make more space for myself. So I'm going to highlight all of this and I'll move it to the right. That's all I'm doing. Okay, so from request PIN, we actually go to customer enters PIN number. That's where we go to. We don't go to validate PIN. And then from customer enters PIN number, we go to validate PIN. Okay, I'm just making all this quick corrections. So this is the actual flow. Request PIN, customer enters PIN, ATM validates PIN, ATM checks if the PIN is correct. And you know what? I'm actually going to delete this and just put PIN correct, because this is part of the validation process anyway. And I hope I haven't lost anybody. ATM is doing a validation, but from a customer standpoint, all they know is, oh, ATM said my PIN is correct or my PIN is incorrect, right? Okay, so I'm going to move all of this back. I don't need this much space in here. And I'm going to move all of this back as well for now. Okay. So this is where we're at. Let me just, this is bugging me. All right, it's still not, this arrow is still not very aligned, you know, but it is what it is. So we're here. And so we're talking about if the PIN was incorrect, ATM will request that the customer enter PIN number again. So in here, we're going to type no. I hope everybody's following so far. So for this diagram here, this decision diamond here, we've taken care of the yes and the no, right? Let's come to this other one here. If the customer has enough funds, then the ATM will disburse the funds. So in here, what do we put in here? In this arrow that leads to ATM disbursing funds. Can anybody tell me?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. But if the customer didn't have enough money, what will the ATM do?
Request to check amount and maybe select something lower or check your balance also.
I think the ATM just says insufficient funds.
Insufficient, yeah. The ATM displays insufficient balance.
Sufficient balance, right? Okay. So here, notifies customer of insufficient balance. So again, let's pause for a second here. You're my customer. See how I'm asking you. I'm not making it up in my head because I've used an ATM. And that's how you're gonna ask your client, your subject matter expert, when they're talking to you. They tell you one thing, but they don't remember to tell you the other part of the process. You would ask them to say, okay, so the customer requests funds. What happens if the customer doesn't have enough money? And as you ask those questions, you begin to unravel a lot. They begin to tell you a whole lot more. Okay, so here we're going to select a connector, put a connector in here, and in here we're going to type no. The customer does not have enough funds. So again, to keep this simple, we're going to say it ends. Customer doesn't have. Of course, we know that in real life, the ATM can tell the customer can end that transaction and then start again to select a different amount, or the ATM, depending on how the bank is configured, it may maybe give the customer an opportunity to enter a different amount, right? But for now, we're just going to say it ends because customer doesn't have enough money. And in here, we're going to type end so that we know the difference in between there and here. One is start and one is end. Notice how once I select the connector, it remains a connector, but I want to go back to the pointer tool because the pointer tool is the one that doesn't have like the plus sign, right? All you need to do is go click pointer. You're ready for connector, connector. You're ready for pointer, pointer. It's really just clicking it. We have one more decision diamond we need to address before we go back to customer entering too many incorrect PIN numbers. So here, select another transaction. So here, let's just say no, because I want us to spend time to be able to build these other two lanes. So select another transaction, no. So Select another transaction, no. Right? But the other one is yes. Customer selects another transaction. I'm sorry, let me delete this for now. If the customer selects another transaction, what happens? Where in this process does the ATM return the customer to? Where here does it return the customer to? Can anybody tell me?
Start.
The beginning. So it's going to ask for PIN number all over again. Is that what you're saying?
Some ATMs are configured to do that. Yeah.
If the card is not out, usually.
No, in as much as you're not taking out the card, you can continue with the next transaction.
So continue from where? From where?
You can actually request for money. Well, let's see.
I think it gives you the option to select the next service that you maybe withdraw, deposit a check or something like that. Then once you click on it, it directs you to
maybe like a home page.
Yes, it takes you back to the home page.
Or you select it, it sends you back to your different accounts.
Display accounts, yeah.
Okay. So I just want us to agree. You're the customer, right? And I'm your BA. So you're saying that it sends us back here. Customer selects account to. In fact, let's change this to customer selects account for transaction.
Or selects transaction type.
Yeah, I think transaction type, because
yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that the customer might want to withdraw. It might just be to check the balance or something. Do something other than withdrawal.
Do not deviate from the goal of your process. This process is withdraw funds. It's not deposit check. It is not anything but withdraw funds. So you make a good point, except that point will not be accommodated here.
This process. Okay.
All we're talking about is withdraw funds. Does that make sense?
Yes.
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 Good. So we're saying that, I mean, maybe for the purposes of this conversation, right? We're saying that if the customer selects another transaction, it would return them here. So we need to put yes in here. Okay. So let's do a quick walkthrough of what we've mapped so far. The starting point is here with the customer. You need to know the actor who begins the process, the actor who ends the process. You need to clearly state the starting point. Nothing occurs before this, and nothing occurs after the end. Customer inserts card into ATM. ATM requests PIN number. Okay. Customer enters PIN. I'm just going to put PIN number here to make it consistent. Customer enters PIN number. PIN correct? Yes. ATM displays accounts held with the bank. PIN incorrect? No. ATM returns customer here. And this goes on till the customer enters the PIN number, or the customer maxes out the number of tries. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. Okay, so let's continue here. Customer displays accounts held with the bank. Sorry, ATM displays accounts held with the bank. Customer selects account for transaction. Customer enters amount to be withdrawn. To be withdrawn. Oh, why do we have request amount to be withdrawn here for the bank? Customer selects account for transaction. Oh, ATM request amount to be withdrawn. Was that what we agreed on? And then the customer enters the amount. Is that what we agreed on? So like this. ATM request amount, and then customer enters the account, the amount. Yes. I need somebody to confirm.
Yes, that's what we agreed on.
Okay, good. So I'm just going to quickly update this. So request amount to be withdrawn. I'm just going to move all of this down a bit to give myself more space. Okay. Customer enters amount, and then ATM validates that customer has enough money, and then we continue on. I think we're good, so I'm going to move this back. Okay. So ATM validates customer has sufficient funds. Customer has sufficient funds. Yes, ATM disburses funds. Customer takes money from the ATM. customer takes receipts. No, so this is wrong again, right? The arrows are wrong, not the process. Because what happens here is ATM generates receipts. That was what I think we agreed on. I'm just gonna move this out. Okay. So
I have a question.
Sorry, go ahead. What's your question?
The side that it says customer has sufficient funds and is no. What about if the customer does not want to still withdraw, but want to withdraw a lower amount? What do we do here?
So I talked about that earlier, right? That's a possibility, but because we're trying to keep this simple, right? I want us to still go back to all of what needs to happen here. So that's why I mentioned earlier, sorry if you missed it. We know that's a possibility, but because of time today, we're just going to keep it simple. Okay. But that's definitely a possibility. So ATM generates receipts. Customer takes the receipt from the ATM. And then the ATM asks if the customer wants to do another transaction. If customer indicates they want to do another transaction, the ATM returns the customer to this point here. But if the customer says no, the process ends. Where the ATM checks if the customer has enough funds. If the customer doesn't have enough funds, we just said notifies customer of insufficient balance and end. But like, sorry, I didn't see your name because when I'm displaying, I can't see who's talking, right? Like you said, of course, in real life, there's that other process where the customer can select a smaller amount, but we'll leave it at that for now. For now, based on what we've mapped out, is everybody following? Any questions? I'm just going to take a quick look at. Okay, it depends. Tito, I'm not sure what you're referring to here. So we add no to the, yes, you add no to the connector. I'm done. I'm guessing that's what you're referring to. If it's a decision, you have two arrows coming out of it. One arrow, you type yes into it. The other one, you type no into it. Shola, yes. None of your, oh, okay, that's good. Awesome. Shola, you said which of the dynamic connectors is being used? None of mine is drawing lines. Are you using the connector up here, Shola?
Oh, don't worry. I'm good. I'll figure it out.
You did?
Thanks.
Okay, fantastic.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're good. Now we want to talk about where the customer has entered the PIN number wrong in, the bank typically gives 5 chances and now the customer has entered the PIN number wrong 5 times. Okay? And so at that point, let's say what happens is the ATM holds onto their card. Let's just say, that would be a terrible process, I think. I think the ATM should just give them their card back, but this is how this bank does their process, right? Okay, so PIN correct. If that's a no, it's going to request PIN number again. That's what we're saying here. But so customer enters PIN number here, and then if the customer enters PIN number here, PIN correct, it goes to yes, PIN incorrect, it goes to no. But now the customer has entered the PIN number incorrect PIN number 5 times. So incorrect PIN entered 5 times, right? If that happens, we're saying ATM seizes. No, I don't need a connector yet. I'm just putting these things here so we can move a bit faster. So ATM seizes card. Okay, so let me go back to my pointer tool. And I'm just going to create a bit more space for myself here because this is a big map we're working on. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to make my customer lane a bit bigger as well. I'm just trying to make the map look a bit better here. There's nothing more I'm doing just in case you think I'm moving fast. I'm just trying to, use the real estate better. Okay. So here we're saying customer enters PIN number. PIN correct? No. So let's say incorrect PIN entered 5 times. And the actor here is the customer. So if I use this here, I like my sub processes to be small. Okay. So actually, let me think about this for a minute. I'm trying to look at where to place it where this diagram doesn't look terrible with arrows going left and right. I'm just reading the map myself. Pardon my being quiet. So PIN correct? No. PIN correct? No. Okay. Okay. So I'm not going to use a sub process here. Incorrect PIN entered 5 times. The reason I'm thinking about this is that usually when you have a task, right, you have one arrow coming out of your task. When you have a decision diamond, you have 2 arrows. So for example, look at this decision diamond. You have 2 arrows coming out of it. You have one going into it. So everything apart, every shape apart from start and end, actually just start. Start does not have an arrow going into it, but everything else, if you follow everything we've documented, has an arrow going into it. And everything apart from the decision diamond has 2 arrows coming out of it. Like I mentioned earlier, because the decision diamond is trying to make a decision, positive, negative. So it would have an arrow going into it and an arrow coming out of it. The reason I think that this is going to get a bit complicated is that the process for resolving a card being stuck because a customer has entered incorrect PIN, they maxed out the number of attempts that they allowed, is almost an entire process itself.
Mm-hmm.
So if I map it out in here, my worry is that I'm going to confuse everybody because this shape is going to double with the number of arrows that we have in there. Okay, I think I know what I'm going to do here. So there are 2 more things we want to talk about here, right? We have the swim lane. So this is called the swim lane. Each of this is called the swim lane. So we have the customer service rep and we have the cash officer rep. For the cash officer here, from what I'm hearing is that, let's say the ATM has run out of money, right? Then the cash officer basically loads cash into the ATM. And I think someone mentioned that the cash officer has the authority to go into the ATM to withdraw, to take out a stock card. But let's start with the first part, the cash officer loading money into the ATM. Okay? Where in this process, can anybody on this call tell me where in this process the services of the cash officer will be needed from the point of view of loading the ATM with cash? Anybody? I mean, somebody has to know. All the people who told me about cash officer.
I don't.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Can you repeat the question again, Abiola?
Yeah. The question is that based on what we've mapped out so far, just focusing on these 2 lanes here, customer and ATM, where will the services of a cash officer be needed here? Can anybody think of anywhere here where we will need the services of a cash officer?
Maybe where we have the ATM disbursing.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Will it be there or before there? Can the ATM disburse what it doesn't have?
Is before
Customer
the
has insufficient.
Before then.
So my bad, sorry.
No, it should be before then. Because the
it should be
ATM
before
cannot
then.
it doesn't
It's before then. Before then.
Yeah, so I agree it's before. Where before?
After cash, customer has sufficient funds. So it's supposed to move from on there to going ahead to disburse the funds, and then it should there should be an error to say, okay, there's no money in this machine.
Right.
It's not about the customer, but the machine now.
Right. So somewhere here, right? Somewhere in between, after the ATM has checked if the customer has enough funds in their account, the ATM then needs to check if it has enough money to disburse. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's focus on that. So we're going to come here. I know that I need to insert a few shapes in here. So again, I'm just creating space for myself. I'll highlight this and I'll do arrow right, and it's going to create space for me. That's all I've just done there. Highlight it, move it to the right. Okay.
What happened now?
So now we know that the customer has enough funds, but before the ATM can disburse it, ATM needs to check, excuse me, if it has enough money to give the customer. So that's a decision. But that decision, so I'm just going to type it out first. Has sufficient funds, okay? And I am going to insert that in here. Watch what's going to happen once I drop it on this line. Just watch what would happen. It automatically adjusts the diagram, moves this yes to the left, which is what I want it to do anyway, because I want it to check if it has sufficient funds after it has confirmed that the customer has sufficient funds. Okay? So this is another way of doing requirement gathering. When you're mapping it out and they jump from here to here, start asking questions about what needs to happen in between. Because when your stakeholder is giving you the requirements, they're talking to you as it comes to their mind. They're not analyzing anything. They're just telling you their day-to-day. It is your job to analyze what they're telling you to identify if there are any gaps in there. Okay? Now, based on your experience, life experience from other jobs, right? You know that there's a few things that need to happen from here, that needs to happen between here and here. And even sometimes you don't know the actual thing that needs to happen, but you just have a feeling something needs to happen. And those are the things that will make you keep asking why. Remember how we talked about why, who, where, when, right? And by asking all of those questions, they'll begin to tell you more. Okay, so has sufficient funds? If the answer to that is yes, then it continues on here, right? But let's say the answer to that is no. The ATM doesn't have enough money in it. What does the ATM do at that point? Is the cash officer automatically alerted, maybe on their screen at work, saying someone is trying to withdraw money, there's not enough money? What happens here?
Your card is returned.
No, usually there is an interface that will alert the cash custodian or the head cash that a particular ATM doesn't have sufficient funds.
Okay.
So there is usually a minimum threshold. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to call this receive insufficient cash notification. Okay. And that we're going to put in the lane of the cash officer, because the cash officer is the one receiving it. And then what does the cash officer do? The cash officer loads the ATM machine with cash. Loads cash. Let's just keep it at that. Okay. Now, I have a question here about this process that my customer, is describing to me. If the ATM realizes it doesn't have enough money, it just doesn't leave the customer hanging. even though it notifies the cash officer that there is not enough funds, what does it do with the customer while the customer is waiting for money?
That was what I said. It returns the card to the customer.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't hear that. Can you say it again?
The ATM will eject the card and return it back to the customer.
Okay, so I said that before. I didn't hear it. Sorry about that. So what I'm hearing is that the ATM notifies the cash office that the ATM doesn't have enough money based on the last person who tried to withdraw. Okay, even though I'm inclined to think that when the ATM is low on cash, whether a customer is withdrawing or not, it would notify the cash office. But anyway, based on what you're telling me, it notifies the cash office, which again, it's a possibility anyway. It notifies the cash office that the ATM is low on cash, but it also ejects the ATM card. Does it notify the customer? Does it just eject the card and not tell the customer what happened?
There's an error display usually on the ATM, but that depends on the bank. Whatever they want it to display to the customer.
So for the purposes of this conversation, we just say that it displays a message that unable to dispense, something like
exactly.
That. Okay. So first, we're going from. So I'm going to move this down here. Okay. And I'm going to take a connector. Now, what I'm doing here is something you would hardly ever see on my map. Having a line that crosses another line like this. I do not like it. I do not do it. But when I start out with my map, because at this point, I'm laying it all out. This is not about perfection. It's about mapping it out. Once I map it out, I have all the shapes in there. I have the arrows in the right place. I've captured everything that needs to capture. I begin to realign it to make it look good. That's why I care about the aesthetics, right? So if I were submitting this map to you as my final work, chances are you're no good. Somehow, I'm going to fix it. One of the ways that I'll fix it, I can even tell you quickly here. You see the cash officer lane that I have down here. Because as I'm mapping it, and I realize, late in the process, let me take my pointer too. Late in the process, I have this actor, being active, and it's making my map look ugly. What do I do? I'll delete this for now. What do? I move this actor up. If I move that actor up, can you see that it still doesn't look very fantastic, but I deleted this line. I personally, and this may be a personal thing, I don't like lines crossing anyhow. There has to be a flow, left to right, top to bottom. Usually that's what I try to do. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do top. You see, I'm actually even still crossing a line here. So again, this is something that I actually spend time on. We're not focusing on that today. So I'm going to undo this and just bring it back down here. Okay, so receive insufficient cash notification, loads cash, right? And I'm going to put a connector. I'm going to take my connector and put it here. Loads cash. And after the customer loads cash, one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly get rid of this line here. So I'm going to change, where's this thing? I'm going to change the size to legal. Okay, legal is not big enough. Legal gave me more room. He moved the arrow. He moved that dotted line. Let me show you again. See where the line is. I changed to legal, not big enough. What's bigger than legal here? Tabloid. I changed to tabloid and it's moved this down here. So let me go back to home. I'm just going to move things to the right because I have this space on the right, right? Okay, that's that. And then I'm going to move this as well. Okay, I'll move this too. Sorry, let me take my pointer. Okay. Just pardon me while I move this thing. This way, we're going to get rid of all of the space to the right. Okay, because I moved everything to be contained in this diagram that I have, it helped me get rid of the space to the right. And usually I'll clean it up a bit more and move this in here. But again, let's not focus on that. So anyway, cash officer loads cash into the ATM. At this point, even though there's cash now, the ATM card has been ejected, right? And so if the client wanted money, they would have to start all over again. So what does that mean? We're going to pull an end, and this end is going to go here. So that ends the process. But there's one thing we haven't covered. It is where if there is not enough money, the ATM ejects the card, right? We're going to say eject card and displays. For now, I'm just going to call it insufficient cash. The bank probably has a nicer way of saying it, but we'll just say insufficient cash notification. Okay, so let's assume that this is what the bank tells the customer if there is insufficient cash. Okay. And so from the eject cash, we know that it goes to end, right? That ends that transaction that the customer is trying to do, and the customer needs to start all over again if that is what they want to do. So let me see if I can get something bigger than, so right now I have tabloid. Okay, no, actually fit to drawing. Fit to drawing is another good one you can use, because whatever the size of your drawing, it just tries to help you fit it into the page that you have.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, just a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cash, is that not an ATM action? Is it a customer action?
Sorry, which one are you referring to?
The one you just put in customer. Ejects card and displays insufficient cash.
Oh, yeah, that will go down in here. So okay. Let me, good catch there. So I'm going to move this down so I can create room for myself. You can see the ATM swim lane. And it's okay for one lane to be bigger than the other, right? Obviously, the lane that performs more actions will take up more space. So eject card, right? So this is a no. Again, bear in mind that only the decision diagram can have, initially for most of them we had two, but now we have 3. Any other type, like the process, will always have just one arrow going out of it. Okay. Okay, so that's a yes. And I just need to quickly place the arrow for end. So we know we ended the, okay, I'm not sure why this is acting funny, because where this circle is, I should be able to click on it and just lift the arrow up. Give me a second, okay. Yeah, that's not the right way to do it, but that seems to be the only way it's letting me do it now. That still didn't work. second. Okay, so I need an arrow going from eject cash to end.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead with your question, please.
Where it says add sufficient funds for the ATM and the arrow goes up, shouldn't that be no? If there is no,
it should be, you're right.
Yeah.
It should be no. Okay, so let's just do a quick read of this diagram again before I spend 5 minutes trying to clean it up. I'll actually try to share this diagram with people on the call, but I want to leave room for questions. So, customer inserts card into ATM, ATM requests PIN, customer enters PIN, PIN correct, yes, ATM displays accounts held with the bank, PIN correct, no, it takes us back to request PIN. Let's look at the happy path. ATM displays accounts held with the bank, customer selects account for transaction, ATM requests amount to be withdrawn, customer enters amount to be withdrawn, ATM validates, customer has sufficient funds. So I thought we got rid of this. We don't need, the validation is this process right here, so that's okay. Customer has sufficient funds. If it is a yes, yeah, if it is a yes, ATM checks if it has if the ATM itself has sufficient funds. If it is a no, the no is a shorter part, so let's quickly take a look at it. If customer has insufficient funds, ATM notifies customer of this insufficient balance and it ends. Okay, if customer has sufficient funds, ATM checks if the ATM itself has sufficient funds. If it's a no, ATM ejects the card and that ends the process. Something isn't right here. So customer selects account for transaction. No, that shouldn't be there. So let's go back here. If ATM has sufficient funds, ATM disburses money. If it doesn't have, it ejects the cash. That ends the process. If it has sufficient funds, it disburses the funds. Customer takes money. ATM generates receipt. Customer takes receipt. ATM asks the customer if they want to do another transaction. If customer selects yes, okay, now I see what I got rid of. If customer selects yes, then if customer selects yes, yeah, I don't think what we did here was correct, because if customer selects yes, they want to do another transaction, did we agree that what would happen next is it would take the customer to the account listing? Is that what we agreed on?
Yeah, that's what we agreed on.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that's the arrow that I was looking for that I couldn't find the other time. This black arrow gives you the ability to move this up and down. Okay, so this is a yes. Okay, but if the customer selects no, the process ends. Okay, if the ATM has insufficient funds, it sends a notification to the cash officer. Cash officer loads cash and it ends. Okay. This map looks ugly to me, but we've captured all the steps that happens in withdraw funds. Let's bring this back home. What is the purpose of this? I know that I'm teaching you how to use Visio, but there's a purpose behind it. The purpose behind it is that when you meet with your customer, again, whether you're doing current state or future state, doesn't matter. In current state, they will walk you through how they do it today, either by you observing them, they're working, you get their permission and you observe them, or you're interviewing them, or it's in a workshop, all those techniques we talked about, but they will tell you the current state. If somebody presents this to you, this information to you, there's some things you should start thinking about as a BA. It means that one of the requirements that this department has is that a customer should be able to withdraw funds if the customer has sufficient funds, if the bank has enough funds, if the customer enters the right correct number, Can you see where your requirements are coming from? Because I know usually when we talk about requirements, people are like, okay, so but how do I gather requirement? You don't go into a meeting and they're like, welcome for requirement. Now we begin to tell you requirement. No, it's going to happen in conversation form. They're going to tell you day in the life of the account of the marketing manager, day in the life of the accounting clerk. They're going to tell you a conversation around it. You're going to document it. You document the process. The best way to document it is document it line by line. Don't make it fancy. They've told you the first step, insert ATM, insert card into ATM, type it out, insert card into ATM. They told you the next one. Because remember, you're not going to map this in front of the customer. No client is going to watch you do this mapping. They're going to tell you what they do. You're going to record it however you deem fit. And then you will take it away and put it in a map. When you not put it in a map, in addition to the text you've written, or even just the map, depending on how much audience they're giving you, you book another meeting with them and say, oh, I have mapped out the process you described to me the other day. Bear in mind that over the course of your time at that company, you may be documenting 150 processes, right? This is just one of 150. So you map it out. And then you take it back to them. And as you begin to walk them through it, they'll say, oh, you know what? Oh, I forgot to tell you. Actually, between here and here, there's something else that happens. But if you don't put it in front of them in picture form, that part eludes them. It just doesn't come to mind. You find out a whole lot more when you map it out, and they can look at it in one stretch and go from left to right, top to bottom, to look at the process they describe to you. If there's any gap, they would identify it. If there's a pain point, they will tell you and say, oh, by the way, where we have insufficient funds is a pain point, because what the system does today is that it just ejects the ATM card. It doesn't give the customer an opportunity to reduce the amount. And because of that, customers are unhappy. They're moving to another bank. That is a pain point right there. That is one of the ways you're going to find the pain point. The point I'm trying to make here is that we talk about requirement, we talk about pain points. Stakeholders or subject matter experts are not going to give you a document and say, here is a list of our pain points. No. What they're going to do is to describe the process to you. And along the line in the conversation, they'll tell you, oh, and this part is a headache. And this part takes so much time. And this part is where we make so many errors. And this part takes forever to complete. And because of that, we're losing business. And as they're telling you all those things, as a BA who's gone through a training and understands all of these things, you begin to say, oh, that is a requirement. Oh, that is a pain point. Oh, this requirement needs to be carried forward into the future. This one, that is a pain point. Salesforce, we need to find the resolution for it in Salesforce, whatever application it is you're implementing. And as you're getting all this information, in your mind, you begin to figure out what belongs where. This is a pain point, we need to resolve it. This is a requirement, we need to carry forward. This is a requirement, they do it today, they want to do it in the future, but they want to do it differently in the future. Is everybody following? Does anybody have questions? I really want to hear from you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
So in the process of creating when you're creating a process and you're trying to understand why you created that process, how do you do it? Do you go back to a requirement, or Visio just provide, or you can just use like maybe a tool on Visio, maybe a card format or something to remind you of why you created that process on?
So let me understand the question. You're trying to remember why you documented the process.
Yes. And you're trying to remember, and you seem like, how do you overcome that? Do you try to look at your document, do you try to look at your documents requirements, or is it a better way of just like putting it on Visio while you created that process? Because I see that
you're trying to remember why you mapped it out.
Yes. Yes.
So there's only one thing to remember on why you mapped it out. You mapped it out for your audience to consume it. the process they told you verbally over a 1-hour meeting, you've described the process in, like you've typed it out, right? But you've also mapped it, because typically your audience will consume a map faster than they will consume 20 lines. Everything we wrote in here, we mapped here, right? If we wanted to write it out line by line, maybe we'll get 20 to 30 points. I don't know how many sheets we have in here, right? But we've mapped it out here. We can read through this map in 2 minutes. And that's why your audience likes maps. Now, when you create the map, you don't give them the map to go and read on their own. You read the map to them. You schedule a meeting and you walk them through the map. So there's not a lot to remember. You've mapped it out because it's a way of communicating to your audience. That is why you map it out. And this map is going to form part of your project documentation. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. You did. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Is there anybody? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. So I know that with this, you kind of try to keep it short because you're just trying to show us like what it's supposed to be like. And you said it looks messy. But in my own head, I'm thinking if I'm doing it for real, and I have to actually go through all the processes that we decided not to hear, that it's going to look messier than this. So
Yes,
I'm kind of worried about that.
Yeah, so always aim for your map to not look messy. And I'll tell you why. If it looks messy, people are not going to read it, or they're going to gloss over it, and they're going to miss things. And when they miss it, oftentimes, some of it comes back to you as the BA. But you're right. You can't always make it picture perfect. As a matter of fact, it looking ugly is one of the reasons why we're moving towards the future state. When you have arrows going left and right, but you as a BA, you're convinced that you've done your best to clean it up. It's just that the process is messy. It is what it is. In fact, that messy state is what they need to see. Then when you map out the future state shouldn't be messy, because we're going to work out all the kinks, right? All the arrows flying left, right, and center, processes being repeated, okay? We're going to resolve most of it in the future state. So you're right. Sorry, I didn't see the name of the person who spoke, but sometimes there's nothing you can do about a messy map. It is messy because the process is actually messy. When I talked about cleaning this up, it's because I know that I can do a bit more justice to this. In fact, before tomorrow's meeting, I'm going to clean it up after tonight's class for tomorrow morning, and then I will show it to you again tomorrow. It may not look picture perfect, but it will be cleaner than it is right now. So that's what I was talking about. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So I think there are a few raised hands. Shola, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Abiola. I just want to know if it's possible to export this page, like maybe export to a PowerPoint or email it to a stakeholder to review if we're not having a meeting.
Okay. So you can, what people actually do is that, let's say you had a Word document, right? Because you're going to create the narrative. It's called the narrative. Every time you have a map, let your map be derived from the narrative. The narrative is the lines 1 to 20, the way they told it to you, and you typed it out in Word. That's your narrative. Your map should come out of the narrative. You can put a link from your map, a link to your map. You can put it in the Word document so that when they click on the link, it will take them to the Word document. Of course, it depends, right? Because a lot of this is based on access. If where the map is stored, that person doesn't have access to it. So let's say your company is storing documents on SharePoint, for example, and the SharePoint folder where you're saving the map, this person doesn't have access to it. When they click on the link, it may not work. So make sure you get them access. But there's something I want to mention. You said, can you email it to them? Please do not email a map to your client before reviewing it with them. They don't use Visio. They don't know Visio. You email it to them, it's probably the first time they've seen Visio. It's not going to help. After creating a map, you want to validate it with them. You should book a meeting to validate it. That's always my recommendation, because when you book a meeting and you're walking them through it, you're going to find new things. There may be something you've understood and misdocumented. There may be parts of the process that they forgot to tell you. And by you walking them through the map, they would remember, right? And they will tell it to you. You do not need to edit it in front of them. Just make a note, go with show it to them on a screen, but also go with a printed copy. So as they're talking, because you're not very comfortable with Visio yet, chances are, right? Just make the notes on the printed copy. And you don't want them to know you're not very comfortable with Visio yet. Make the edits on the paper and then take it away. Until your Visio is true, correct, don't be emailing it, because you don't know who they're going to email it to. You don't know where it's going to end. So again, that's my recommendation. But back to your point, yes, you can include a link. If the person has the access to the location of the Visio, you can include a link. You can also just snip the Visio, snip it, the image, and insert it in the document, just like you're inserting an image into a document. Okay, Kachi.
Yeah, thank you, Abiola. Okay, I have two questions. One is how do I identify a pain point when talking to stakeholders or when gathering requirements, especially when they are not exactly mentioning it? And secondly, how do I also identify a pain point while just looking at a process map? Maybe I was given a process map to go and look at, and nobody's actually talking to me, so I have to look at that process map to determine where they have issues.
So good question. The owner of the pain should tell you the pain. After all, you can't feel another person's pain, right? So it is in their talking. When they give you a map, usually there'll be somebody to walk you through the map, and usually you're the one creating the map anyway. So let's look at the scenario where you're the one creating the map. When they're talking to you about the process, look at the part of the process they're talking about and they're just moving around. They just seem uncomfortable, or they look unhappy, or they actually verbalize it to say, and that happens a lot. They verbalize it to say, this part of the process is where we're losing money. This part of the process is where we're making a lot of errors. This part of the process is where we're wasting money. This part of the process is where we're waiting on the marketing department to give us the information we need. And sometimes it takes 1 week and we've wasted a lot of time. They will not call it pain point, but look out for the parts of the process where they're complaining or where they're saying, if it happened differently, this is how much better we could have done. That is a pain point. So you really have to intently follow the conversation, and they will give you clues to it. Like I said, they're not going to say, oh, Kachi, now I'm about to tell you the pain point. No, they're going to continue it like a regular conversation, but in their body language, in their tone, and sometimes they actually verbalize it. Like I said, they won't mention to you. Now, if none of that happens and they just tell you the process and they're looking straight the entire time and they don't indicate what's the pain point, ask. Don't say what is the pain point. Ask, is there any part of the process that could be improved on? Is there any part of the process that isn't working for you right now? Is there any part of the process that is negatively impacting the work you're doing today? Is there any part of the process that is limiting your team from reaching its full potential? There's so many ways you can ask the question. I just gave you 4. When you ask like that, they will give you the information you're looking for. Kachi, does that help?
Yes, very well. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Tango.
All right. Thank you so much, Abiola. Basically, in my head, it's almost like I'm looking at a Google map and, it keeps recommending that a particular route will be 3 minutes shorter than another one. So the question I have, Abiola, the questions I have, the first is there a rule of thumb that guides the creation of a map? That's one. And the second question is, will the knowledge base of the BA in this sense, trigger that dynamism in identifying how to lay out a map? Thank you.
So this is how I'm going to answer your second question. Practice makes perfect.
Okay.
There is no shortcut to it. If you begin to, so think about it this way. Now you've seen Visio. Start thinking about different processes in your current place of work or your past place of work and map it out for fun.
Okay, nice.
Practice makes perfect. There's no shortcut to it. I can't remember my first process map, but it must have been terrible. Now, I do so many maps. Okay, my current gigs now, I'm really not doing a lot of mapping, but there was this gig that I had that in the space of, I think, 2 months, I had done like 150 maps. Like I was mapped out, if there's anything like that. If there's anything like mapped out. So what am I trying to say here? This is one of those things, like every skill of a BA, practice makes perfect.
Okay.
Is there a rule of thumb? There's certain things you need to do certain way. Where's your start? Where's your end? What's the decision, right? Don't use the process when you should use a decision. Those are the building blocks. Once you have the building blocks, you have it down, you're good. Try not to overcomplicate your maps because you're trying to look very intelligent. You're already intelligent. They hired you because they're confident you're intelligent. Make your maps very simple. If possible, use only 4 types of shapes. Your audience, they're not visual experts. If you're trying to make it look fancy, you're going to lose them. Simple is more when you start mapping.
Okay.
Simple is more. Okay?
Okay.
Does that help, Tengo?
It does help. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks again for, the very eye-opening, interesting part. My question is just, in cleaning up your map, like you were speaking to Dawn earlier, does it matter where the start and end is on your swim lane? When you're cleaning it up, does it matter? Because right now what we've drawn, it's in the customer for start and end, right? So when you're cleaning it up, does it matter?
Well, good question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, good question. Your start should be at the start. So the question is, where's your start? The process you're documenting, who starts it? The customer is the one who starts it. So our start should not be here. Our start should not be here. Start where start begins.
Yeah,
Identify
but remove the
start
customer.
and put it there. Yeah. So let's say we're mapping a different process and the cash officer is the one who starts it, then our start will be here. That's the rule for that. Put the start shape where the process actually starts. Put the end shape where the process ends.
Yes. So my question is, can you move that entire swim lane to somewhere else, or best practice must still always be on top? You know where the start is? It's on the first.
No. Yeah. Let me just minimize this. So you're saying, can we do this?
Yes. Is that okay?
I would not say it is not okay. As a matter of fact, that may be your only route to having a clean map sometimes.
Okay.
But typically, remember that when you're mapping, you want to go left to right, top to bottom.
Okay.
Always bear that in mind. Top down, left, right. That's how you want to go. So if you start here and then you start going like this, it often doesn't look good. Let me just undo. This is an ISO. Let me undo that. Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We have just 7 minutes left. I know that you are not Visio experts just based on 2 hours of me showing you the tool. But is there anybody who doesn't understand the concept of what we're doing, the purpose of mapping, or even how to go about a basic map? And it's okay to speak up. We still have 1 week of class. I'm more than happy to go over Visio again. And by the way, your next assignment, you're going to show us a current state and a future state map of that fantastic project you've been describing over the last, I think, 2 weeks. And then you're going to show us your requirements in Jira. But we'll go over that in a bit more detail later. And of course, when I say your current state and your future state map, nothing complicated, doesn't even have to be this big. You know who your actors are. Make it simple. Just make it simple. Show to us that you get the concept of what we're talking about here. But anyway, let's bring it back to today's class. Any other questions? No question is silly. Any question at all, I'm more than happy to answer it.
So, in what case would you advise? I'm trying to figure out, this is a necessity for, do you believe this is like a necessity for every project? Like it fits in every project, or are there cases where this is not really necessary?
Well, like they say, I'm not going to say no, there isn't a case for not doing a process map, but most, especially if an organization is going from current state to future state, there's always room for a map. They may not even ask you for it as a BA, but as a BA who knows what they're doing, you create a map. You create a map. There may be some cases where there's actually, good question, Dawn. There's actually a project I'm working on right now that's going live. And in my opinion, a lot of the processes, actually, even if we mapped it out, it would be really small maps, right? It won't be anything as elaborate as what we've done here. So at the time, they had a BA working on it, right? I was working on a different project, and then the BA had to go away for health reasons. So I inherited it. She had created a few maps here and there, but nothing, nothing solid enough. I can tell you, Dawn, that we missed requirements by that. By not mapping it out, we're currently in UAT, new requirements are showing up. Now, having said that, even when you map it out, that always happens. There's hardly ever any project where you don't find at least 1 or 2 requirements later on. But that's one of the things that mapping helps you with. So, yeah, you may end up on a project that doesn't require a map, or they may not ask you for it. My recommendation, map it out. Your stakeholders will be happier looking at a map than reading your 10-page requirement document. They still have to read the document, but at the time when you're validating the process, because remember, your requirements will come out of the process. So if your process is incorrect, your requirements will be incorrect. It's garbage in, garbage out. So at the point where you're doing this map, you're trying to first understand and document the process, and then you begin to draw your requirements out of it. But if you just go straight to trying to get the requirements, the chances of missing important things, I think the chance is higher, sincerely. So again, my recommendation is just always think, will this process benefit from a map? And if there's a chance it will, map it out. Don't say, oh, I'm not comfortable with mapping, yes, I'm not going to do it. Put a phone call through to your friend who knows mapping or your mentor who knows mapping, and they hopefully can help you out with it. But I will recommend, most processes will benefit from a map. Think about it, even as we're mapping it now, see the conversations that got generated from mapping it out. And those are the conversations you want, especially when you are in a workshop, right? They've given you these requirements, you recorded it, you've created the narrative, you've mapped it out. You bring them all back and you walk them through the map. And, light bulbs start going off in there. They're like, oh, there's one more thing. Oh, there's this other thing, That's the whole idea behind it.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. John, did you have a question? Okay. Does anybody else have a question? We have just 2 minutes left. Okay. Can we?
Are we still off? I'm sorry. Are we still having a class on Monday?
We are. Thank you for bringing that up. We are. We're having a class.
I have a question.
Okay. Hi, Moya. Sorry.
I want to ask, does Visio allow working online, without downloading the app? I've searched and I've not seen.
Well, I know the paid version, right? If you want to work online, it's cheaper than if you want to be able to download it. They definitely have that. For the free version, even the free version, for the people who downloaded the free version, did you basically create an account or did you actually download the application? Can anybody answer that?
It asked me to create an account. I created an account.
Yeah, so Moya, sorry, I think the free version, you're creating an account, so you're working online. Can anybody point Moya, sorry, to how you created an account? And
even with even with you creating the account, it's just for 30 days.
Yeah, 30 days.
Because I'm asking because of I understand it's Microsoft and Microsoft don't work on Mac. So that's my problem now.
Oh, did you say on
it works
Mac,
on Mac
or online? I heard online. Did you say on Mac?
Online. Like without downloading the software.
Yeah,
so
you can
because I use Mac.
online. I think
Yeah,
there's
Windows for Microsoft. Sorry, Windows for Mac, and then you
No
do
Windows. No Windows.
There is.
Come again?
No, you don't have Windows, or
I don't have Windows.
You need Windows to have your Microsoft, I guess.
Yeah, but when you're even downloading, it will ask you if you're using for Mac or for Windows based.
For Windows, yeah.
Okay, because I know Microsoft don't work on Mac.
You need to set up a Windows account first.
You mean a Microsoft
You have Word,
365?
yeah.
Word documents, no.
No, if you're talking about Microsoft 365, that's different from the general Microsoft we know. Office 365.
May I recommend that you reach out to someone on the team, hopefully be able to help you out. I wouldn't want to keep people longer than necessary. Thank you all for sitting through the class. Sorry, who's speaking? Is that Johannes?
Yes, I was saying we'll talk back door with Moyo.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm glad to have been able to introduce you to Visio. Visio is a very cool tool. Remember, simple is better, and it's a good visual that your stakeholders are going to really appreciate. Okay, it gives them a snapshot, and it's going to help your documentation actually down the line. Look forward to connecting with you on Monday. So quick one on Monday, we're going to go over the last 2 lessons we have. They're very small lessons. Your assignment, you're going to receive it tomorrow. I gave you an idea of the assignment already. You're going to be documenting requirements. We need to see the requirements in JIRA, all the things you need to create in JIRA, and then the current and future state. Again, remember, simple is better. Have a good night, everyone, and talk to you on Monday.